Hi there. Welcome back to Reddit Confessions. Grab a drink, lock the door, and whatever you do, don't trust a sentence that starts with, "Don't wait up." Here's why. "I'll only be gone a couple of hours," she said, sliding her coat over a silky navy blue blouse that I knew wasn't part of her usual work attire. I blinked. "Since when do client meetings happen at 8:40 p.m. on a Wednesday?" I asked, half joking. She didn't laugh. She just smiled. That plastic kind of smile you use at funerals. "Vincent's wife just passed," she added quickly. "He needs help picking out drapery for the memorial. It's sad. Don't make a big deal." I didn't say anything. I just looked at the scarf she'd grabbed. The perfumed scarf. The one she never wore unless it was a wedding, or something she hoped would feel like one. That's when I did it. I followed her. She drove across town. Not to the dead wife's house, mind you. But to a tucked-away restaurant with dim lighting, expensive chairs, and a parking lot full of sleek cars that all seemed laced with secrets. I sat there, 2 rows away, watching her through my windshield. She parked. Checked her lipstick in the mirror. Fluffed her hair. That's when he showed up. Not Vincent. Not her boss. Not even someone I recognized. Just some guy in a crisp shirt with confidence that said this isn't his first time meeting someone else's wife after dark. She met him at the entrance. They hugged. Not politely. Not platonically. Her hand stayed on his shoulder a few seconds longer than necessary. He said something. She laughed like she was auditioning for a romantic comedy. I couldn't feel my hands. I didn't confront them, not right away. I needed to see it. I needed to catch them red-handed in a moment they couldn't explain away with some bizarre tale of sympathy and curtains. I walked into the restaurant 20 minutes later. Sat alone. 4 tables away. Pretending to read the specials while chewing on the edge of my humiliation. They clinked glasses. She touched his wrist. He leaned in and whispered something in her ear. She nodded. Bit her lip. You know how they say you can feel when your heart breaks? They're not wrong. It's not loud. It's quiet. Like a chair being pulled out from under you, but you're still standing. And then she saw me. She turned her head slightly and her eyes met mine. And I swear, she froze. Like someone had turned her to marble. She turned white. Not pale. Not flushed. White. Like her soul sprinted for the exit. Her date followed her gaze. Looked confused. Then uncomfortable. I didn't give him the chance to speak. I stood, walked right to their table, and said. "So, this is Vincent." No one answered. She opened her mouth, but only silence came out. Her hands were shaking. I placed a small envelope on the table. Inside, printed screenshots of her texts, the Uber receipt from last Friday, and a note that simply read. "This marriage has left the building." I walked out before she could cry. That was 48 hours ago. She's been calling. Messaging. Begging to meet. She even emailed me a spreadsheet of our expenses as if a budget breakdown would erase what I saw. But I'm done budgeting my dignity. The only thing I regret? Not walking in sooner. I didn't go home that night. I didn't even know where home was supposed to be anymore. I drove around aimlessly for an hour, pulling into gas stations I didn't need, watching streetlights blink through the windshield like they were judging me. Eventually, I ended up at an old diner we used to love, the kind of place with cracked leather booths, burnt coffee, and pancakes served at midnight by a waitress who looks like she's seen it all. She didn't even blink when I ordered eggs and just stared at them. Cold. Uneaten. My phone buzzed non-stop. 17 calls from Tessa. Yeah, her name's Tessa. I didn't say it in part 1 because I didn't want to. Even typing it now feels like chewing glass. Mixed in with the calls were text messages. Long ones. Apologetic ones. Angry ones. And then voice notes. I couldn't bring myself to play them at first. But around 2:23 a.m., I hit play on the first one with my thumb trembling like a leaf. Her voice cracked. Linden, please. I didn't plan for you to see that. I didn't, he doesn't mean anything. I swear. I didn't sleep with him. Didn't sleep with him. That's what she led with. No, I love you. No, I made a mistake. Just straight into defense mode. Like this was a court case and not our actual life. And the line, I didn't plan for you to see that. That was the giveaway, wasn't it? Not what she did, but that I saw it. I listened to the next one. Then the next. They just got worse. One moment she was crying, the next she was gaslighting me. If you had just trusted me, maybe we could have worked through this like adults. But no, you had to go full detective. Detective? I watched her walk into a fancy restaurant and flirt like she was auditioning to ruin my self-esteem. That's not detective work, that's self-preservation. By sunrise, I found myself parked outside our house. I sat in the car for a long time, watching the windows glow in soft morning light, wondering how something that looked so normal could be so hollow. I walked in quietly. The place smelled like her perfume, like betrayal in a bottle. There were still 2 coffee cups in the sink from the morning before, one with a smudge of her lipstick on the rim. I stared at it for a solid minute before throwing it in the trash. She wasn't there. Her coat was gone. Her shoes too. But on the dining room table was a handwritten letter. She hadn't written me a letter since our anniversary 5 years ago. It started with, I didn't know how else to say this. Always a great opener when someone's about to torch your soul. She went on to say she felt neglected, that I was emotionally distant and more married to my routines than to her. She said the man, Gregory, apparently, was just a friend from a design convention she reconnected with. And that the night I caught her, they were just having drinks to talk about creative collaborations. Creative collaborations. That's what we're calling it now. And apparently, creative collaboration involves stroking someone's wrist and staring at their lips like you're about to write poetry on them. I didn't respond. I didn't leave a note. I just grabbed a duffel bag, packed clothes like a zombie, and left the house so quietly I could hear the echo of my own breath in the hallway. Later that evening, I stayed with my cousin Darren, who's been divorced twice and thinks that makes him some sort of emotional guru. He handed me a beer and said, "Bro, you're taking this too hard. Just cheat back." Like this was high school and we were trading dares at a party. I told him thanks and locked myself in the guest room. I didn't need revenge. I needed answers. And I got one. The next morning, I received an anonymous email. No subject line. No signature. Just a message. Gregory isn't new. Check your photos from last November. She's been seeing him longer than you think. I froze. That's when my stomach dropped like a trapdoor. November. That was the month she said she had a weekend work retreat in San Luis Obispo. I didn't go. I had the flu. She brought me back a souvenir mug and said she missed me every second. I opened my Google Photos. Scrolled. Scrolled. And there it was. A selfie she sent me that weekend. She was standing in a wine bar. In the background, blurred but unmistakable, was the same man from the restaurant. Gregory. Leaning over the bar, ordering drinks. Her lie wasn't born that night I caught her. It had roots. It had history. It had practice. And suddenly, the whole house of cards collapsed. I hadn't planned to see her again so soon. After the letter, the voicemails, and the anonymous email about Gregory, I told myself I needed time. Distance. Breathing room. But you know what no one tells you? When someone burns down your reality, you can't breathe anywhere. You just inhale smoke, whether you're in your own bed or a stranger's guest room. It was Darren who convinced me to go back to the house, at least to get the rest of my things. I still had work stuff in the office, photo albums, my late father's wristwatch, things that don't belong in a duffel bag. I figured I'd go during the day. She worked afternoons. I'd be in and out. No drama. Of course, she was home. I walked through the front door and there she was, Tessa, sitting on the living room floor, surrounded by crumpled tissues, a half-eaten grilled cheese on a plate, and the same candle she lit the night she left. Cinnamon vanilla again. Still pretending, I guess. Her eyes locked onto mine like I was a ghost she'd summoned by mistake. "You're not supposed to be here," she said, standing up too quickly. "And you weren't supposed to be there," I replied, my voice cracking in all the wrong places. She looked like she hadn't slept. Good. I hadn't either. Not properly. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with him. Her hands. Her laughter. That lipstick I never got to kiss off. "I was going to text you," she said. "Oh, don't bother," I snapped. "Unless it's another spreadsheet. Maybe include a line item for public humiliation next time." She flinched. Actually flinched. For a moment, I thought I'd gone too far. But then she took a deep breath, folded her arms, and sat back down like she was the one being betrayed. "Linden, can we just talk without you turning everything into a performance?" A performance. That's what she called it. As if watching my marriage fall apart in real time was some kind of drama I chose to participate in. But I kept my cool. Somehow. "You know what I want to talk about?" I asked. "That retreat in November. San Luis Obispo. The one where you said you missed me every minute." She froze. I could see the muscles in her jaw tighten, her fingers curling slightly into her palms. "You said you were with coworkers," I continued. "Said you were showing them your designs. You even brought me back a mug that said, 'Design. Wine. Unwind.' Remember that?" She didn't answer. "Gregory was there. I saw him. In your selfie. In the background. You didn't even bother cropping him out." That broke the silence. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. And then finally, the truth, or her version of it, started to spill. "He wasn't supposed to be there," she said, voice low. "I told him not to come. He just showed up. We had a history, okay? But I didn't do anything. Not then." I stared at her. "And when did you start?" I asked. She didn't respond. She just looked down at the floor like it might give her an answer. "You did start, right?" I pressed. She nodded, just barely. "After the retreat?" I asked again. She looked up, and for a split second, her expression changed, not guilty, not ashamed. Just relieved. Like someone who's finally admitted to something awful and thinks that earns them a ribbon. "I didn't plan for it to happen," she whispered. "It just did. The oldest lie in the book. It just happened. As if cheating was like falling into a pothole." I shook my head and turned toward the stairs, ready to get my things and get out. But as I stepped away, she called out behind me. "There's something else." I stopped. Of course there was. "Gregory, he's not just someone I met at a conference," she said slowly. I turned around. "What does that mean?" Her eyes were wide now, panicked. Her voice shook. "He's from before you. We dated. Years ago. I don't know how to say this, but we were engaged for a few months before I met you." The room felt like it tilted. "What?" He left. Said he wasn't ready. Just disappeared. And then when I saw him at the design conference last year, it all came rushing back. I was angry, confused, but I still had feelings and I held up my hand. Stop. She did. So let me get this straight, I said, pacing now. The man you told me was just a client, just a colleague, was actually your ex-fiancé who ghosted you before you and I ever started? And you kept that hidden while having wine dates and hand-stroking sessions at rooftop lounges? She didn't defend herself. Not anymore. She just looked empty. As if all the lies she'd been juggling finally crashed around her. I stood there for a long moment. Then walked upstairs without another word. I didn't pack. I didn't yell. I just sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the walls we'd painted together 6 years ago. Everything I thought I knew about her, about us, was suddenly unreliable. Fabricated. Rearranged into a version of reality where I was just a placeholder. A second chance for someone who still had one foot stuck in the past. I didn't intend to go looking through her things. I wasn't there to snoop. I was there to leave. But when your reality gets rearranged like a jigsaw puzzle with missing pieces, you can't help but try to make sense of it. You start looking at everything differently. Even a nightstand drawer becomes suspect. And that's exactly where it happened, in the bedroom we shared for almost a decade, in the drawer on her side of the bed that she always kept locked. She claimed it was for privacy, journals, feminine stuff, the kind of excuse you never press because it feels intrusive to ask twice. But now I wasn't her husband. I was just the guy who hadn't figured out how deep the deception went. I noticed the drawer was open. Slightly. Like she'd been digging through it recently. I hesitated. Then I pulled it open all the way. Inside were the usual things, pens, a notepad with doodles, receipts, hair ties, a half-used lotion bottle. Nothing suspicious at first. But then I found a small black velvet pouch tucked behind a stack of old birthday cards. It jingled. Inside, a ring. A man's ring. Thick, silver, engraved with 2 initials on the inner band, G+T, Gregory and Tessa. I stared at it for a long time, my hands going cold. It wasn't just the existence of the ring. It was what it meant. The man she told me left her, ghosted her, vanished from her life before I ever entered it, she kept his ring. Not buried in a box somewhere. Not packed away with college memories. No. In her bedroom. Within reach. Near where she slept. But that wasn't all. There was a folded piece of paper beneath the pouch. I unfolded it slowly, my pulse pounding in my ears. It was handwritten, in neat, slanted script I didn't recognize. It wasn't her handwriting. I still think about that night. I shouldn't. But I do. Every time I see you smile at him, it cuts a little deeper. I miss what we were before you became someone else's. Tell me it wasn't a mistake. There was no name. No date. No signature. But it didn't need any. I sat on the floor, trying to breathe. The edges of the letter trembled in my hand. All this time, I thought the worst thing she did was lie about seeing him behind my back. But this? This was something else. This was emotional loyalty. Devotion to someone else. Hidden in my house. She told me Gregory came back into her life by accident. She said she had feelings, but it just happened. But this letter, this ring, proved that he never left. Maybe he was always there, living like a ghost between our pillowcases. That's when I heard the front door open. I hadn't realized how long I'd been upstairs. I froze, still holding the ring and the letter. I heard footsteps below, soft but cautious, like she didn't want to make noise. I stepped out into the hallway, half expecting her to call my name, to ask if I was there. But she didn't. Instead, I heard her whisper. Not to me. To someone else. I leaned over the banister and listened. I told you not to come inside, she hissed. What if he's still here? A man's voice answered. Low. Confident. I just need my things, Tess. 5 minutes. I'm not trying to start something. Gregory. He was in my house. I stepped back into the room, breath shallow, heart thudding so loudly I was sure they could hear it. I stuffed the ring and the note back into the pouch, shoved it into my coat pocket, and slowly closed the bedroom door. This wasn't about closure anymore. This wasn't about betrayal. This was something else. Something still alive. I didn't go down the stairs. I didn't confront them. I waited. Waited in silence as she walked him into the living room and spoke in hushed tones. Waited as the past I never knew played out below me like some hidden theater. Then I heard the front door close again. Not a slam. A quiet shut. I waited another full minute before opening the door and stepping out. The living room was empty. No sign of him. No words from her. Just silence and shadows. I walked down, reached the hallway, and opened the coat closet. His jacket was gone. But his cologne still hung in the air. And next to the door, on the console table, sat something I hadn't seen before. A folder. Thick. Bound in a rubber band. I opened it slowly. Inside, paperwork. Travel itineraries. Hotel reservations. 2 names. Hers and his. And one destination circled in red marker, Seattle, next week. Seattle. Next week. 2 names on the itinerary, one of them being my wife's. A trip planned while she still shared my bed, while I made her breakfast on weekends and reminded her to take vitamins. The departure date was 4 days from now. A 5-night stay at the Camberwell Hotel, a 4-star downtown place with an upscale rooftop bar, the same chain where I caught them the first time. There were dinner reservations printed out, one at a seafood place with a 2-week waitlist. I checked. The confirmation number was right there. The payment went through our joint credit card. She didn't even bother to use her own account. I wanted to rage. To storm through the house and scream at her until her lies ran out of breath. But instead, I sat down at the dining table, next to the candle she kept relighting like it meant anything. I stared at the folder. At the paper trail she never meant for me to find. And I started thinking. Not about how to win her back. Not about how to punish her. But about how to disappear. Not the dramatic kind. Not the pack your things and leave town with a duffel bag kind. No, I was thinking something more precise. Let her feel what it's like to be the only one confused. I left the folder exactly where I found it. Untouched. No sign I'd seen it. I even took the trash out, just to make sure things looked normal. That night, I went back to Darren's and told him nothing. Not because I trusted him, I didn't. But because I needed silence, and he was too self-absorbed to notice mine. The next morning, I made calls. Quiet ones. I spoke to my manager at work and requested time off, citing a family emergency. I contacted my cousin Maddie in Vermont, someone Tessa never liked and hadn't spoken to in years, and asked if I could stay with her for a bit. She didn't ask questions. Just said, come. Then, I started preparing. I rented a P.O. box. I opened a private checking account. I moved my direct deposit. I even logged into our home security app and changed the password. I wasn't shutting her out completely, not yet. But I was building a version of my life where she no longer had access. And the whole time, she acted like nothing had changed. She still texted me every morning. Hope you're okay. Still sent updates about the house. I watered your fern. Still said she wanted to talk, but respected my space. It was like watching a fox pretend to be a house pet. Then came the night before the trip. She texted me. Leaving tomorrow for that client retreat in Seattle. Last minute thing. I'll call when I land. With a little heart emoji. She actually thought I'd buy that. After everything. I didn't respond. Instead, I booked a ticket to Seattle myself. On a different flight. To a different hotel. Just 2 blocks away from hers. I wasn't going there to catch her this time. I wasn't going to confront her in public or cause a scene. I was going to watch. I wanted to see who she was when no one was looking for the truth. Who she became when she thought I was a safe, clueless memory. And what I saw, broke me in a way I didn't expect. She arrived with him, arm in arm, smiling like they were newlyweds. At the check-in counter, he kissed her temple. She leaned into him. No tension. No hesitation. Like this was a normal thing they did often, and maybe it was. I followed them to the hotel's rooftop later that evening. Sat in the shadows behind a glass divider with a whiskey I didn't touch. I watched her laugh. Touch his leg. Whisper something into his ear while biting her lip. This wasn't some new affair. This wasn't just a spark reignited. This was love. Or the version of it she never gave me. It was quiet. Confident. Familiar. Like they were living a secret life where I didn't exist. And suddenly, I realized the worst part wasn't the cheating. It was that she looked happy. Truly, effortlessly happy. Not guilty. Not torn. Just, free. And I wondered, was I ever that for her? Or was I just the intermission between 2 acts of the same play? I left before they saw me. I didn't need to hear what they were saying. I'd heard enough in the silence between their gestures. Back in my hotel, I stared at the ceiling for hours. No tears. Just stillness. And in that stillness, a decision took shape. I wasn't going back. Not to her. Not to that house. Not to the role of the confused husband she thought I'd keep playing. But I also wasn't going to announce my departure. She was going to come home to something far colder than confrontation. She was going to come home to emptiness. She thought I wouldn't notice. She thought I'd break. But I didn't. Instead, I left her a message. Not a voicemail. Not a text. Not some dramatic social media blast. Just one simple letter, placed in the one place I knew she'd never expect, the back of the freezer, wedged behind the frozen peas she never touched. It was folded twice. No envelope. On the outside, I'd written her name, Tessa. Nothing else. By the time she returned from Seattle, everything was gone. The spare key under the ceramic frog in the garden. Gone. My clothes from the closet. Gone. The wedding photo from the hallway. Gone. The drawer next to the bed where I used to keep my late father's watch. Empty. Even the small photo booth strip she kept stuck to the fridge with a magnet, the one of us at the state fair 4 years ago, her laughing with whipped cream on her nose, I took that too. But I didn't just vanish. I erased my presence with precision. The Wi-Fi router password was changed. The Netflix account was locked. The joint credit card was cancelled. Her, just in case, emergency fund. Transferred. Everything she once accessed with my name attached had quietly slipped out of her hands. I watched from a distance, staying with Maddie in Vermont, who, by the way, turned out to be the only person in my life who wasn't more concerned with what I should do than with how I actually felt. She didn't say, get over it. She said, let it hurt until it's done hurting. Then decide who you want to be. That gave me clarity. I hadn't been trying to punish Tessa. That's not what this was. I was making space for the silence to echo loud enough for her to hear what I couldn't say. And based on the string of texts she sent me after arriving home, it worked. 9:18 p.m., where are you? 9:22 p.m., Linden, did you leave? What's happening? 9:45 p.m., the locks are changed. I can't get into the Netflix. Did you do this? 10:01 p.m., okay. I found the letter. Is this a joke? No, Tessa. It wasn't a joke. Because that letter? That was the only thing I left behind. And it said this. You asked me once if I'd ever stop loving you. The answer is yes. It was the moment I realized you smiled wider for him than you ever did for me. I'm not angry anymore. I'm awake. You can have the house. You already made it empty before I walked out the door. G+T was never just a mistake. It was a warm-up. I hope Seattle was worth it. You were right about one thing, I wasn't paying attention. But now that I am, I don't see anything left worth saving. L. I thought that would be the end. But it wasn't. 2 days later, Maddie knocked on my bedroom door with a strange look on her face. She was holding her phone, cheeks pale, mouth half open. You need to see this, she said, and handed it to me. It was a screenshot. From Facebook. From someone I didn't recognize, a woman named Jillian Westbrook. Blonde. Sharp eyes. Her profile photo looked polished, professional. I might have scrolled right past it if not for the caption. To the man whose wife took my fiancé, I think we have some things to talk about. Call me. Below was a phone number. A Seattle area code. My throat dried instantly. I stared at the name again. Westbrook. Where had I heard that? Then it hit me. One of the travel documents in the Seattle folder. The dinner reservation confirmation, it had a secondary contact number on it. Not Tessa's. J. Westbrook. She wasn't just the other woman. She was Gregory's fiancée. And she had no idea what he'd been doing either. Until now. I stared at the phone for at least an hour. Jillian Westbrook. The woman whose fiancé had been sneaking around with my wife. My former wife, I guess. Still hard to say it. She'd posted publicly. Openly. Like she wanted to be found. And suddenly I wasn't alone. I wasn't the only one who'd been played like a placeholder. Someone else out there had been sold the same lie, just in a different accent, with different perfume. And she was looking for answers too. So I called. It rang twice before a voice answered, clipped, composed, but already laced with something deeper. This is Jillian. My mouth was dry, but I managed. This is Linden. There was a pause. Like her brain needed a moment to match the name to the devastation. Then came the inhale. The sharp, unfiltered kind. Oh. My God. We met in person 2 hours later. Not because we planned to, but because once the wall cracked, we both wanted the whole truth. She drove down from the city, pulled into Maddie's driveway in a pristine white Lexus with a frown carved into her face like it was permanent. She was taller than I imagined. Blonde, but not soft-featured. She looked like someone who had mastered the art of containing explosions. And now, someone had finally lit the match in her hand. We sat in Maddie's sunroom. She laid her purse down slowly, pulled out a folder, almost identical to the one I'd found back at my house. She didn't waste time. Gregory and I have been together for 3 years, she said flatly. We got engaged last spring. We were supposed to get married this fall. Seattle was going to be our mini honeymoon test run. I just nodded. I didn't trust myself to speak yet. She slid a photo across the table. Gregory and her, smiling on a beach. His hand on her waist. Her forehead against his. I thought we were happy, she said, her voice thinner now. I thought he was just busy lately. That's what he always said. Long hours. Late meetings. Work stress. Sound familiar? I looked up. Tessa said the exact same thing. That's when Jillian's composure cracked. She didn't cry. But her jaw clenched, and she leaned back like she was trying to stop her heart from breaking through her ribs. You know what the worst part is? She asked. He made me feel crazy. Every time I got suspicious, he turned it around. Made me question myself. I even went to therapy. Therapy, to deal with trust issues I didn't create. I understood more than she realized. He said they were just collaborating, I told her. That they'd dated once, years ago, but it meant nothing now. Her face twitched. They didn't just date. She was the one who broke up their engagement. He told me years ago that she left him for someone else. Crushed him. He called her the one who got away. I froze. She told me he left her. That he ghosted her before we met. Jillian exhaled sharply. So they both lied. Perfect match. We sat in silence for a while. Two strangers, tied together by the same betrayal. The kind of silence that doesn't ask for comfort. Just acknowledgement. Then Jillian leaned forward. You said in your message, you left her. Is it final? Emotionally? Yeah. Legally? Not yet. She nodded. Same here. I cancelled the wedding venue yesterday. My mom thinks I'm overreacting. I gave a bitter laugh. My cousin thinks I should just cheat back and move on. She shook her head. People don't get it. It's not just the betrayal. It's that they built us. Carefully. Over time. Made us feel safe while they rehearsed love with someone else. Then she said something I didn't expect. Would you be willing to help me? I looked at her. Help you, how? She hesitated. Then pulled out a USB drive. I hired a private investigator a month ago. Something just felt off. I never got around to reviewing all of it, I didn't want to believe it. But now I need to. She slid the drive across the table. You deserve to know how deep it goes. And I don't want to watch it alone. Something inside me said I shouldn't. That nothing good ever comes from watching the raw footage of your own humiliation. But I picked up the drive anyway. That night, in Maddie's guest room, we plugged the USB into an old laptop. We sat side by side, two ruined people with nothing left to lose. There were photos. Hotel check-ins. Camera footage. Dinner receipts. A hidden recording from a bar where Gregory had been bragging to a friend. He said, she still loves me. She just doesn't know it yet. Once I get her away from him, we'll be back where we were. It's just a matter of timing. I didn't even realize my hands were shaking. Jillian reached out and paused the video. Are you okay? She asked. No. I wasn't. But I nodded anyway. She turned to me. Linden, we could expose them. Not for revenge. But so no one else ever ends up like us. And in that moment, for the first time in weeks, I felt something close to control again. Maybe we could do something with this wreckage. Maybe the end of our stories was the beginning of theirs, in full daylight, without the curtains drawn. We didn't go nuclear. We didn't scream, or expose them with fire and fury. Instead, Jillian and I chose something they never expected, calm exposure. Measured truth. Delivered without apology. We uploaded the photos, the footage, the timelines, and the receipts onto a private link, one that we shared only with the people who needed to know. Her family. My close friends. His workplace. Tessa's design clients. Quiet transparency, not vengeance. There was no headline. No social media war. Just truth. And that was enough. Gregory lost his job within a week. His firm had a strict personal conduct policy, and apparently, this wasn't his first ethical slip. Jillian later found out he'd cheated on a previous partner 2 years before her. As for Tessa, her reputation didn't implode, but the fallout was obvious. Clients canceled contracts. A few friends unfollowed her silently. Her mother even reached out to me, unexpectedly. Left a voicemail. "I'm sorry, Linden. I didn't raise her for this. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I had no hate left. Instead, I took Maddie's advice, let it hurt until it was done hurting. Then, I started over. I got a small place in Vermont. Quiet. Wood floors. Big windows. No reminders. I kept a couple plants. Bought a used record player. Started cooking again, something I hadn't done since the early years of my marriage. Jillian and I. We stayed in touch for a while. Exchanged updates. She sent me photos when she adopted a dog. I mailed her a book once, one that had helped me crawl out of my own head. We didn't fall in love. We didn't need to. We were just survivors. 2 people who had been burned and walked through the fire without becoming it. One night, months later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Just one sentence inside, typed in black ink. I hope someday you smile without remembering me. I didn't know if it was from Tessa. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. Either way, I was already smiling. If you've made it this far, thanks for staying with me through this wild and painful journey. Sometimes, betrayal doesn't need revenge, just clarity and closure. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had a moment where walking away gave you back more than staying ever could? Drop your story or thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget. You're watching Reddit Confessions, where real stories reveal the truth behind the calmest faces. See you in the next one.